Welcome into Fantasy Intervention. I'm James Kriess. Joined with me is Juan Pena and Corey Spala. And this is a little bit of a different six-pack. This is called Case Study. Now that it's the off-season, as you may know, we brought you the Fantasy Six-Pack every week during the 2020 season, where we talked about one buy, a beer that we were cheersing, and one sell, a beer that we thought was skunked, or one to give to somebody else you really didn't like. The case study will focus on, you guessed it, a case of beer. Due to it being the off-season, we want to start a new series called Case Study, where we'll discuss different off-season content for Dynasty platforms. Each episode will include a six-pack of players that will be a key for the 2021 season. It's time to dig a little bit deeper. Our first installment of Case Study will target a six-pack of players you should be selling, followed by more installments until we complete the case. And guys, I'll start it right off. My first sell of the season, of the 2021 Dynasty season, is James Robinson, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now that the 2020 season is officially over, it's time to cash in on some of those inexpensive chips you picked up throughout the year. My first guy is Robinson. He took the league by storm as an undrafted free agent with versatility and speed boost, finishing as the running back 4 through 16 weeks in 2020. Now, you probably acquired him as a low-end rookie pick, or even possibly off of waivers, making him found money, really. The odds that Robinson stays the lead back in Jacksonville are pretty good, but that doesn't mean his value will ever be as high as it is right now.
Good point.
For starters, Ryquell Armstead, who was the front runner for the starting job in Jacksonville before contracting the COVID-19 virus, will be back in 2021 and will most likely be a change of pace back to help Robinson stay young and fresh. Secondly, the Jags really don't have much behind Robinson, so they'll most likely look to add more depth at the position, and whoever the head coach is going to be in Jacksonville next year, especially if it's Eric Bieniemy, will make use of multiple back sets. Lastly, we all know that quarterback Trevor Lawrence officially declared for the 2021 NFL Draft and will most likely be the Jags' new franchise quarterback next year. Lawrence will take away a lot of work from Robinson, as he easily ran for 203 yards and 8 touchdowns on 68 attempts in only 10 games played as a senior at Clemson. All these factors throw up a red flag for me, seeing that Robinson's production will hit a proverbial wall in 2021. With a new head coach, more roster depth, and of course, a mobile quarterback in Lawrence. So sell high on Robinson now and try to acquire a possible early to mid first round pick. Currently, on Dynasty Trade Calculator, Robinson's value is set at 21.4. The fourth pick in the 2021 draft is set at 22. So you can be sure you're getting your young talent for an asset that you didn't spend much money on to begin with. So go ahead and sell your shares of Robinson with confidence and get back a pretty penny in exchange.
Nice, dude.
I dig it, Chef. I dig it. I have the same mentality, Chef, with you. And when I do my guy, that's the same exact idea is I want to sell high. I want to sell while I can, and I want to get maximum return. And I love this year's draft class. So I'm going to do the same thing. And Chef, I'm going to sell David Montgomery. Like David Montgomery had a decent year last year, but he finished as the RB24. So he was on the fringe. And he only had 2 games over 100 yards. He had back-to-back touchdowns only once and 7 total touchdowns for the year. But this year, he was the RB6. So you got to take that. And right now, he's probably at his height. He had 65.3% of his snap shares or higher since week 6, 65.3% of his snaps, right? 105 yards or more in 7 of his last 8 games. And he scored at least 1 touchdown in each of his last 6 games. His last 6 games, he was the RB1 in points per game. That's more than Derrick Henry and more than Alvin Kamara at 25.7. So he's on a heater right now.
Yeah.
So if you take the situation for him going into this offseason, it's similar to last year's RB4, which was Austin Eckler, who was 24 years old at the time, and his team signed him to a team-friendly contract, keeping him in LA, right? But he lost this season due to injury, and now I know we can't predict that Montgomery might get hurt next year or anything of that nature, but if you can get a return on him while he's at peak value, you need a top 6 or a top 7 draft pick to get you that. You can get Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, or Chuba Hubbard. Any one of those four is a ideal replacement for Montgomery, who right now, according to the Dynasty Trade Calculator, holds an 18.4 value. So that's about number 6 or number 7 in a draft. And I'm willing to take my chances on one of those rookies instead of hanging on to David Montgomery.
Yeah, man, you said it. I'm so on board with selling Montgomery at his highest right now.
Yeah, you made some definitely good points. And since you guys took 2 running backs, I'm going to switch it over a little bit. I'm going to sell a tight end, and I'm going to go with Baltimore's own Mark Andrews. He is the current tight end 3 in Dynasty. This is according to Fantasy Pros. This tells me that Andrews is at his highest value. So in Lamar Jackson's ceiling season, he received 98 targets, and in Jackson's floor season, he received 88 targets. So we got to see the opposite end of the spectrum there. And the thing is, the touchdowns keeps him viable. But I just kind of want to profit off Andrews, sort of like you guys were saying with your picks. So this season, he scored 9 games where he did not have a touchdown. And during those 9 games, he averaged 7.64 points per game. That's just on half PPR and tight end premium scoring. So in the 7 games he did not score a touchdown during the 2019 season, he averaged 6.54 points per game. So that is 16 out of 29 games that you are expecting a mediocre game. Remember, since he's the Dynasty tight end 3, we got to profit off this. So this makes selling Mark Andrews easier if you have a viable tight end 2. But if you could sell Mark Andrews for a Noah Fant, a Dallas Goedert, and then maybe a 2021 second round pick, or even sell Mark Andrews for Irv Smith and a 2021 first round pick, that sets your roster up for future success in this deep 2021 draft class. The trade market is yours if you can get the luxury of another top tight end like TJ Hawkinson, and maybe you could target another position, a wide receiver, running back that you may need for depth.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there, Corey. I mean, you hit it on the button right there. Mark Andrews is on his highest right now, really.
Still high.
Yeah.
All day.
Sell high. That's the name of the game, guys. You got to sell high. And the next guy that I'm selling is quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
Woo.
Now, we all know he plays for the Green Bay Packers. He's been doing it his whole career.
Right.
And there's no denying that Rodgers is one of the best QBs that has ever played the game. He finished as a QB4 this year with 362 fantasy points, with his top go-to receiver, Devontae Adams, missing 2 games. But his timeline is surely coming to an end. As we all know, Rodgers only has 1 year left on his contract with Green Bay, and it's debatable that it could be his last year in the NFL as it is right now. But coming off of a great season like 2020, he still has value as long as he returns next season. If your team is not in contention for 2021, then he's the perfect guy to sell to a win-now team, especially if you're in a Superflex league. You may not get much for him due to the fact that he is 37 years old, but I suggest trying to package him in a deal for some draft capital and possibly another positional player. You can most likely get a late first-round pick and possibly a receiver like Denzel Mims or Jalen Reagor to help rebuild your team and get younger at the same time. Now, obviously, I'm talking Superflex here, and it does make a difference. But like I mentioned earlier, a mid-first rounder, according to Dynasty Trade Calculator, is worth, let's say, 20 credits. Rodgers is currently at 33.8. Mims and Reagor are only valued at 11.3 and 11.2 respectively. So try your best to move Rodgers if you aren't in contention for the upcoming season, so you don't get stuck with 0 value when he does retire.
Chef, I really like those points that you're making, especially selling high. It's important, like you said, to a team that is a contender. So bouncing off the quarterback, I'm actually going to go with Jalen Hurts. Who does not like that shiny new toy? If anyone is infatuated with Hurts, why not capitalize and profit off him? The owner would obviously need to overpay for you to give him up. And maybe you could package Hurts and another player for maybe Kyler Murray. Hurts remained fantasy relevant because of his Russian upside, and he still needs to develop as a passer. And I know this is kind of coming off very hot takey and spicy, but if I can get back equivalent production and more, why wouldn't I? Do not need much numbers, especially because this hype is real. In no way, shape, or form am I saying Hurts is a must sell. Just that if you can get the King's ransom, why wouldn't you sell?
Indeed, indeed. And that's the whole dynamic of this whole situation. And that's why we're trading the guys that we are at the point that we are. And my last guy that I'm trading is Aaron Jones. And you would think, why would I trade Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones was the RB2 in 2019. He had 5 100-yard games and a solid touchdown total of 19. But this year, that regressed down to 11 touchdowns. He only had 3 100-yard games. So this is the time to sell him. He's entering year 26. So he's 26 years old. Running backs historically don't get paid, don't get new contracts. He's going to be a free agent this season. So according to Pro Football Focus, Jones is worth $11.25 million this year. The Packers have a massive undertaking in the free agency period with David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, center Corey Lindsey, and corner Kevin King. All need new contracts, and the salary cap is shrinking. So the Packers are really unlikely to re-sign him, and they're going to let him go. We saw the emergence of A.J. Dillon, who was a second-round draft pick in the draft this year. And in Week 16, he had a 21-carry, 124-yard, 2-touchdown performance. So that's going to make the Packers think long and hard about keeping Aaron Jones in a year 26 going into 27. So I would capitalize on his value right now and try to get a young back in a pick. Right now, he's got an almost identical value as Cam Akers. If I can get Cam Akers for Aaron Jones and buy myself that 3 or 4 years of youth, I would absolutely do it. In your leagues, you don't know what people are willing to give up and what people are willing to move. But at his value right now of 26, that's probably a 104, 105 in your draft. So you would want to take that chance, and maybe you can get Travis Etienne or a Chuba Hubbard, one of those young running backs. Anything that you can get for him now before he becomes the next Melvin Gordon, I would advise you to go ahead and do it. And this is the year to move Aaron Jones.
Yeah, Juan, I think you're right, man. Especially, they're talking about possibly him leaving next year. That's something that you want to get ahead on. You do not want to be left in the dust because after he gets traded, his value goes down. So that's a great point that you made about Aaron Jones, man.
It scares me because it feels like it's a Melvin Gordon 2.0 situation. Like I want to trade him before he becomes the Melvin Gordon that we saw in Denver this year, before he loses all that value. I want to capitalize on that RB2, RB5 situation.
110%. So, okay, guys, for all of you that's watching, thanks for tuning in to our case study. Hit that like and subscribe button for updates on everything fantasy intervention, and follow us on Twitter at @joinourcircle_. And this is where we wrap, guys. I'm James Kriess. You can find me at FF_chef. Juan?
I'm Juan Carlos Pena. You can find me at FF One of a Kind.
And Corey Spala at cdotFF.
Like we said, guys, thanks for choosing us to intervene with your fantasy life. Peace.